What is up, my martial arts fanatics? Welcome back to System Breakdowns. As always, I'm Coach Greg. Today we're breaking down Zhang Weili, who is a phenomenal case study. Not only did she just reclaim her title as a UFC women's champion, but she also is a lifelong martial artist. She's been doing Sanda since she was like 5 or 6 years old. She's a KLF champion. An excellent case study when you talk about systems. And that's what we're really here for, of course, is talking about what kind of separates the guys who always seem to win from everybody else who shared amazing natural attributes or skill sets. What sets them apart? And that's what we're talking about with Zhang Weili. And she has excellent systems that she uses that makes her so successful. And that's what we're going to break down today. So that being said, stay tuned. Let's start breaking down Zhang Weili. Okay, let's start by talking about Zhang Weili's basic structure of what she does. Even though she's a Sanda fighter, a lot of what she does has a very heavy Muay Thai influence. Especially when you look back at her old KLF fights where instead of like quick inside leg kicks, she does a lot of these stepping into the big leg kicks with the rear leg. She does a lot of like switch kicks in the body, and she'll do this 2 or 3 times in a row. Really kind of classic kick style Muay Thai is what she did a lot in KLF. When she got to the UFC, her style changed slightly, and I think for the better. What she does now is what I describe as a pressure forward opportunism striking. In her best case situation, what she's going to do is she's going to put them back using this classic Muay Thai style march where she has her hands up, very disciplined, hands in front, and her head's going to kind of sway from side to side as she marches forward to keep her head protected and just give it some movement, making it harder to access. She also adds in some good active outside feinting, which is something I always encourage. When you are not actively engaged with your opponent, you should be actively feinting from the outside, right? And it should be built into your system. Hips, head, all this stuff. And so she's very good about adding that type of stuff in as she marches them forward. This kind of stuff, false steps, hips, shoulders, head movement, sway to side, and disciplined hands. They're going to create an obstacle, making it harder for them to access her. What she likes to do, like I said, is try to pressure them back in a perfect world. Keep them on their heels, keep them moving backward. Then she's going to engage in some opportunism striking, which means that she is going to try to do quick attacks from the outside that are going to be hard for them to counter. Probably the best technique for this is the inside leg kick, which is why she predominantly leads with this attack a lot, where as she marches forward, quick inside leg kick, and then gets back out. Like I said, this was a deviation from what you saw in her KLF fighting days, where it was a lot of classic Muay Thai, where I come in here, I step, big outside leg kicks, right? Very powerful techniques, or coming in with the big switch kick type stuff where she repeats that. Now it's a little bit more methodical. She stays on the outside and she uses this as a probing technique. From this, she's going to generate a response. Now she'll also do a lot of lead hand attacks, a lot of jabbing and lead side hooks. Very similar to what we talk about in the Nemean fight system. She also does a lot of lead side kicks. Very similar to, once again, we talk about the Nemean fight system, where from the long guard, I like to come in from an open stance, and then I have my side kick, my jab, or my leg kick. Very similar in philosophy because they are not as committed. I can start to probe and pick them apart, generate responses, and then start to beat them up off of that. And this is kind of the name of her game. And what we're going to talk about today is if this, then this, right? But it's all going to base off of from her coming forward, leg kick jab, leg kick hook, jab, leg kick, right? A lot of this kind of repetitive lead side attacks that she's going to start making modifications based off of their responses. So that being said, stay tuned and let's start getting into combination groupings. Okay, so let's start breaking down Zhang Weili and particularly her combination groupings. I define combination grouping as a series of combinations or techniques that work and integrate together in a cohesive system. It's not a ton of technique selection. It's a few things that you know integrate really well and they work well, so that as I throw this opportunism attack, I know there's only so many ways that you can move, and depending on what you do, I have a response for each one of those. Let's talk about some things that she likes to do off of that. Now, we know she likes to do that lead side leg kick to either a jab or a hook. She prefers the hook in her later career because it allows her to disengage more easily. If they start doing things like they start backing off a lot or they start pressing forward, she uses her side kick. I want to take a minute and talk about her side kick. It's a very useful weapon of hers. When she backs guys up, sometimes they tend to run too much. Now, you want them to run a little bit so that you can continue to pick them apart and then disengage. And then here, generally the way it works is she'll walk them forward, hit them, and then allow them to back off. She continues forward, hits them, allows them to back off. She'll make some adjustments in here where instead of throwing the leg kick to the jab, maybe she goes jab cross, right? Or maybe she goes jab body kick or body kick jab. Either one of those. She likes to mix those in there as well. Right, so she starts making some variations based on that, where she goes here, maybe she throws the cross instead. Either one of them. But the idea is that I throw a technique and they back up. I march them forward, I throw a technique and I back them off. Now we run into a situation where they start pressing forward a little bit. So now she switches to her side kick. Let's talk about her side kick for a quick second. She's a very interesting side kick because her side kick is not a classic side kick like what you see out of like a Wonder Boy, right? Hips are totally bladed. The side kick becomes very effective from that movement. Normally you don't see a lot of side kicks from somebody with a squared off stance. And this is because she has a Sanda and a Muay Thai background. Her stance is very Muay Thai, but that Sanda background allows her to want to use a lot of that side kick. And so what she does is she kind of has this interesting, technically in Taekwondo you would call this a very bad technical kick, but it's a very functional kick. Why is it technically unsound? Because her toes are up, she's not really connecting with the heel a lot sometimes, her hips are kind of squared off. So technically from a performance like maximizing the damage of this technique, this is not in Taekwondo what we would call a technically good side kick. But from a functional standpoint, it is amazing. And this is where I personally think there's a disparity between Taekwondo going for things that look pretty versus things that are functional. And she's a good example of that. In Taekwondo, what she does not look pretty, but it is an ideal way for her to throw that side kick, particularly based on her style of fighting. And what she does is this. So I call this a springing side kick when I teach it. It's how I prefer to teach it. It's more of a reactive kick rather than a proactive kick where I am initiating. A lot of times what you see out of people who are doing a front leg side kick is some sort of a skipping motion, which is what it's taught in Taekwondo a lot of times. And I never teach that. It's a super telegraphed, useless movement. Instead, she does a little bit more of a reactive attack. If they start to press forward, she'll catch the leg kick from an opportunism standpoint, and she gets a read on them. And what she finds is that instead of backing up, they're going to try to move forward on her the next time. So she goes, okay, she feints the leg kick, and she goes to the side kick, like so. Now, what she'll do a lot of times is push off of this back foot, and that's our spring. As opposed to the big skipping motion or just lifting her leg, she puts a slight bend in her knee, and as she comes in here to throw that leg kick, right, she ends up in this motion here where they're anticipating another leg kick, and now she switches it to the side kick. So it looks like this, right? It's a very clean looking technique, but this motion here indicates to them, because she's led with this lead side leg kick so much, it indicates to her opponent that that's what she's going to throw again. And instead, she just comes in here and springs forward into this side kick. And she can adjust her range very easily off of this. By contrast, she'll also use this as guys start backing up a lot. Now she wants guys to back up, but not too much. So the way that it looks is she wants to throw, force them to back up a little bit, and then disengage so that she keeps walking them backwards with opportunism attacks. Her high hands come in here, pop, pop. And the way that it looks is then they back up a little bit, pop, pop. And this is why she likes to throw that leg kick hook a lot, because it puts her at an angle, forces them to disengage backward a little bit, and continue to walk them back. Let me explain what I mean by that. So, leg kick, hook. They move in this way. Leg kick, hook. They move in this way. She continues to circle them to her right by slowly hitting these techniques, marching them forward, and then pop, pop. But sometimes you get a runner. When that happens, when somebody starts running away a lot, she goes, okay, she goes to the leg kick, and she follows her to the side kick. Sometimes she puts her foot down, sometimes she doesn't. She's very good at judging the range. If she needs a little bit more, she can put her foot down. But sometimes she just needs a little bit more. So it's very similar to what I do when I go for the leg kick, when I get somebody who checks kicks, and I go from here. Very similar in motion. So it's here, very subtle. Here, going for the leg kick, and springing forward. Same technique that she uses when they press forward, but now she uses it to chase them. some other techniques that she'll use. From in here, she'll start to mix up her levels a lot on her kicking in particular. A lot of times you'll see stuff like she throws a jab to a body kick, or she'll throw body kick jab. So instead of throwing to the leg, now she starts going body kick. And once again, still sticking a lot with the lead side attack. Why? Because it's quick opportunism. She can disengage easily, and it allows her to cut off easily to this side and disengage. Sometimes she'll do, and you see this in a training session she does with Sanchai, where they're working on doing a flying kick off of that leg kick feint. So she goes to the leg kick, and then it's goes to the head kick. Or what she prefers to do is after she's thrown this leg kick a couple times, then she comes in here, and she goes to the lead side head kick. Very high success rate with both of those. They're sneaky kicks. And the great thing about it is there's still kind of opportunism. So as she throws the kick, if she doesn't connect on it, she can still easily disengage. Now, the other situation you'll see her run into a lot is a lot of flurry situation. Flurries and blitzes. They all kind of treat the same. And what it is essentially she has, and you see this a lot in her KLF fighting days. She does this way more in KLF. Now she's a little bit more opportunism, pick them apart. But in her earlier fighting career, it was a lot of throwing a lot of outside leg kicks and then throwing a flurry, then disengaging. There's a lot more staying in the pocket and throwing hands. Now she does it on occasion as needed. Generally speaking, she's still going to come here and disengage. But if this person decides to start playing rock'em sock'em with her, she's going to drop her head. And what she generally tends to prefer to do, her modus operandi, is from here, as she throws the hook, dropping her head into a straight cross with her head down, and then throwing a big loopy left to disengage and start resetting. Now, she can repeat this and go here, and disengage however she needs to, and just stay here with her head down, using good rock'em sock'em principles where her head stays down, her feet are balanced, she's protecting herself all the time, and she has a preset attack that she's going to use. She doesn't have to overthink it. She just comes in here, cross, hook, disengage, reset, pop, 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 pop. And she do it as many times as she needs to. In KLF, she does this a lot. Now, she does it as needed. In the Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight, she does it a little bit more because Joanna holds her ground. The other thing you'll see her do is start to add in some blitzing. I like doing this a lot because this is a nice pace change. So when I spar, I do a lot of this. On the outside, pop, pop, right? Pop, pop, pop. Throw a quick attack, nice and light. And then when they're not suspecting it, now all of a sudden explode forward on them, covering a lot of ground. The way that she tends to do it, she will sometimes go to a jab cross hook type thing where she just comes in here, pop, pop, right? Just like we talked about in the flurry. But a lot of times what she likes to do is either throw the jab or feint the jab to the big rear leg kick. Pop, pop. And she tends to be very squared off here in the center with her head down. Cross, hook, throwing big shots until she disengages after she's landed a couple big shots on them. And why this works is this. She knows what her game plan is. It's very hard to hit her because she's keeping herself protected with good built-in defenses. She's got her balance so she can't get knocked down. And chances are she's going to land some big shots on them. So this is a nice, clean attack. It also works well, once again, if she gets a runner, because she can cover a lot of distance on this jab to the leg kick. Disengage. Really nice, clean attack that she can consistently go to. She doesn't have to do technique selection, doesn't have to think about what she's doing. She just does it, and she's done it so often. She knows how to perform with this technique against a resisting opponent. Whereas the other person is being reactive, going, oh shit! She's on the inside, using good, clean inside techniques, throwing over the shoulder, and then disengaging. And like I said, a lot of times she does this off of the jab to the big rear leg kick, flurry. Other techniques I want to touch on real quick. We talked about the side kick. One of the things I want to touch base on is when she gets her back turn. This would happen to you on your J-Chick fight. I want to touch on this because there's a nice technique to express and show how she has solutions no matter what occurs. She knows that when she throws this side kick, there's a good chance somebody's going to end up behind her. And this is what Joanna did. After Weili threw that side kick a couple times, Joanna got slick and she moved to the back side. It was the right thing to do. So Zhang ends up here with her opponent behind her. This is a position that you need to have pre-planned responses for. It's something I talk about as a big problem in Taekwondo where they end up with their backs exposed a lot. You need to have solutions. One of the things I talk about is rolling under, going for a takedown, but sometimes what she does also that works really well, and this is my preferred technique, and this is what she does in this case, she ends up overshooting the side kick, and she instantly goes into the spinning elbow, extending out to the bottom fist. She doesn't have to think about it. She's already done this a billion gazillion times. So as she's in here, she's throwing pop, pop, and then she starts throwing side kicks to start backing Joanna back. This time she throws it, Joanna slips to the side, she's already ready for it, and gets a clean knockout because she has a response built in. Other things that she'll do is, as somebody starts moving forward, she has, we'll just throw in counters here since we're kind of talking about it. I was going to do a separate segment on it, but we'll just do it all together. One of the things that she'll do is, like I said, she comes in here with this jab. If somebody starts moving forward, she's going to switch and shorten it to this lead side elbow. Why? Because she knows she can hit it based on the range as they're coming forward, and it's a nice cutting technique with that elbow. So she's already coming here, and now as they move forward, she just switches it and hits the elbow. Other things that she'll do if they start pressing forward a lot. Joanna, your J-Chick fight, once again, Joanna holds her ground a lot more. She can't back her up, so she starts doing a lot more counters instead. The way she does that, a lot of step and withdrawal. This is a luring technique designed to pull out Joanna's attacks. So she steps, draws out an attack, throws predominantly counter hooks. Works really well for her. But she does also do things like here, pop, step in, slide back, cross. Step in, slide back, check hook, right? Step in. If she presses forward, go to the elbow. Consistent pre-planned responses. It's not complex, it's not crazy, but she knows all she has to do is step in enough to draw out Joanna's attack, slide back out, and as she's pressing forward, pop, catch her. Very common responses. Works really, really well. So that's the majority of her counters. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, she has a lot of striking diversity because of the way that she attacks with these couple opportunism attacks, right? She can level change off of it and gives her a lot of variety. She does also occasionally mix in some rear body front kick teeps. And once again, this is just to keep somebody in the idea that they can't easily move forward. She wants them feeling like she can continuously press them back. Between the flurries that she can engage in, the fact that she can continuously walk them down, it keeps people on their heels. This is a very dangerous combination. Okay. All right, let's talk about takedowns and takedown defense real quick. Most of her takedowns generally tend to be off of a clinch. She has a very good success rate with these. And part of the reason she does this is, we talked about she already has pre-planned responses for these rock'em sock'ems. But sometimes she ends up in a situation where she doesn't like the way it's going, or maybe she wants to try to take it to the ground where she can do her ground and pound, which is a thing that she excels at. This is an opportunity whenever she ends up in this. It's one of the reasons I think a lot of people actively avoid that with her, because they know from right here at any point, she's going to switch to a clinch and do a trip to take them down. It's her modus operandi from here. So she throws and she either disengages and she starts to pick them apart again, or sometimes she starts looking for getting to this position so that then she can use this to either go for a headlock and start going for an outside trip. A lot of times she tends to do the big osotogari, or what you'll see her do a lot of times is here, pop, 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 getting to a plum clinch. And what's really cool is she has a technique that she does a couple times in the KLF that I love, where she gets to here, she throws the knee strike, and then feints the knee and steps through to the inside trip. It is a wonderful technique, and I really enjoyed it. I hadn't put it together. I knew she was doing the inside trip. I knew she was doing the plum clinch. But the fact that she was doing it off of the knee is really cool because it's not something you see a lot, and it makes a lot of sense to do. Where as I come in here, I go pop, 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 clinch, knee strike, feint the knee, step deep to the inside trip, take them down, end up in their guard. This is a wonderful technique, and it puts her inside their guard where she can start doing her effective ground and pound. Really wonderful stuff. Takedown defense. You know, takedown defense, she does a lot of good wrestling prevention, partially because of her style, where she's in here, quick opportunism attacks, makes it hard to do reactive shots. If they start to press forward, she can start to clinch at any point and then do her takedown. So she's able to initiate. She is able to be taken down. People have done it. And when she ends up in the guard, we'll talk about that in the next section. But, you know, it is possible to take her down. Just people don't do it a lot, partially because she does have a high success rate of pulling a clinch or disengaging very easily or just threatening with bombs. So what I want to talk about specifically is Carla Esparza, though. Carla Esparza, she knew that Carla was going to go for a lot of takedowns. She knew this was the big threat. Is Carla coming in with these big blast doubles, stepping on the inside, trying to take her down? So she planned for it. She stayed on the outside a lot. She hit her combinations, pop, pop, threatened, walked her back, really tuned her up with the striking, was winning the striking to the point where Carla Esparza did not feel comfortable entering because every time she entered into range, Zhang was on her with quick attacks, pop, 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 right? Blasting her with heavy shots so that Carla did not feel safe entering into range in the first place. It's a really important tool when we talk about wrestling prevention. You know, I use Francis Ngannou a lot of times as my example. Part of the reason people don't shoot more on Francis Ngannou, part of it is because there's not a lot of good wrestlers in the heavyweight division right now. Partially because of the fact that it's dangerous to enter that guy's range. If you're worried about getting knocked out, it's hard to shoot on somebody. And this is something that Zhang is very good at, is making people afraid of her because at any point she could either switch to a clinch and do her takedown, or you might just get knocked out, right? Eating heavy shots, right? Eating these elbows, eating punches. It's a real threat. But Carla Esparza, she knew Carla at some point was going to shoot on her. So what she did was she used this. Instead of doing takedown defense, she goes, okay, you can take me down, but I'm going to transition to a back in the middle of this. And so what she did was she created opportunity, and Carla catches this leg, starts to go for the takedown. And she goes, okay, you got my leg? I'm going to wrap the neck, I'm going to wrap the back, and I'm going to fall down to a kind of half back position, and I'm going to work my way to your back. If I know that every time I take somebody down, they're going to take my back, that's a real problem, right? And this is something that happens consistently in that fight. Every time Carla tries to get in on her to take her down, Zhang is immediately transitioning to the back. She's immediately thinking about getting this across, getting around the back, getting a wrist control, falling back, getting my legs around. Maybe I end up in a clean back control, maybe I end up in more of a closed guard. Either one is fine. I end up dictating the terms of where that takedown goes to. And that's a really important strategy. And it's something I'm eventually going to do a takedown defense video where I talk about not only the, you know, wrestling prevention and the actual takedown defense in the moment, like, you know, doing this kind of stuff, getting a whizzer, kicking your foot out, stuff like that. But also, when somebody is a superior wrestler, using that against them to end up falling into a sweep where you fall back with a butterfly hook in and you instantly sweep as soon as you hit the ground, or falling back into a back control. So that takedown now works in your favor. Not all takedowns against you are bad things if you are smart in the way that you handle them. And this is a case study that I want to point out because Zhang is very good at using this superior wrestler and using her takedowns against her to pull a back control. Okay. Okay, in the last section, we're going to talk about ground and pound. Real quick, as far as like defense, you know, Zhang does get taken down, but in terms of like guard, look, what she does is nothing crazy. A lot of times what you're going to see from her, a lot of times what you'll see from her is getting to a closed guard, and she's going to start doing stuff, getting in posture control, getting an overhook, and she's just going to keep them broken down. As they start to posture up, feet come on the hips, she kicks them off, and now she starts fighting from here. You will see a lot of stalemating from her on the ground. The idea is that I'm just going to prevent them from being successful when they get on top by tying them up, and as they start to posture up, kick them off. And then from right here, being willing to up kick and stuff like that until she can get the stand up. She knows either the round's going to end or the ref's going to stand him up. That's really her ground defense. You don't see a lot of it out of her in her fights. Mostly what you see it from her is in KLF. You see a little bit more, but you haven't seen it a lot in the UFC, and part of that, she just doesn't have a big UFC record yet. I think she's going to get a fight at some point where somebody's going to start taking her down a lot. I think this is what I was expecting out of the Carla Esparza fight, is her to have to fight off her back a lot. And instead, she just had a great solution for when Carla did try to take her down. That's really her big defense. But if she does happen to get taken down, close guard, tie him up, kick him off, and then get back to her feet. So what I want to instead spend most of my time on here in this last section is talking about offensive ground and pound. What I like about Zhang is that she has a nice way of approaching ground and pound that you don't see a lot today. The problem with ground and pound, when you want to be successful a lot of times, is most of the time when people start attacking ground and pound, they posture up. What this means is it starts giving them an opportunity to disconnect, to create sweeps, to create ability to get back to their feet. It's a nice chance for people to disengage a lot. So it's the battle on this is how do you keep somebody down and successfully continuously strike and not let yourself get tied up. Most of these guys at this level understand that the name of the game from here is to start to tie them up, affect their posture so that I can't do any real damage, at least until they can get back to the feet. Very much what she does. So she knows that's the name of the game. And so she needs to both keep them in place and keep them from tying her up and successfully land damaging shots. And this is what she does. So let's talk about some different positions. Close guard to begin with. It's even kind of hard to illustrate this on a training dummy, but she does, what I really like is, and she does this in KLF again, this is an one, I think to really understand it, you do have to go back and watch her KLF fight. She doesn't have enough UFC material, and some of the stuff she doesn't get a chance to really showcase. But what she'll do is she'll get real heavy, this foot will come out, she'll start throwing bombs, and what she's going to start to do is she's going to start to get up heavy here and start to slide a knee and pry this in between their legs. It's not like a knee cup pass because the legs are still closed. So she's going to slide this knee and start prying it in here, and she starts using this elbow to pry this open. Once she gets this clear, then she's going to get this knee on the floor, throwing bombs, and then it's getting this knee across, getting to a mount. So why is this different? It basically has to do with her guard break involves getting heavy on the head to essentially tripod, getting a knee on the inside, right in the butt crack, and sliding it upward while her elbow comes on the inside and helps create space. Once she gets that knee on the ground, she's golden. Because all she has to do is clear one knee. Now this leg is pinned to the ground. Now the other leg is very easy to extract because they can't connect their feet like they can in a half guard and tie this foot up. This foot pins this leg to the ground so that now, as she's in here, it's just a matter of stepping over, and now she's in the mount. From the mount, since we're here, what I like that she does is she knows, look, these hands are going to come up top. She likes to always have her hands above their arms. She's not looking for underhooks. She wants to be over on top of their arms, threatening these elbows. And what I like that she does from a mount, I'll turn this way so you can see it better, is you'll start to see her do a lot of knee pinning on this arm to free this arm up. She makes this into a one-on-one battle, and she takes this arm out of the equation. From right here, it's your hands versus my hands. Or they start pulling me down, and I can't get any real power behind it. So she gets a knee on top of the arm, pins it down, and starts tying up this arm, gets a couple shots, they get the arm back in the game. She does it again, staying heavy, staying forward. She likes the elbows. But really what you're going to see from her a lot in her ground and pound is half guard. This is the position that, she will advance out of it, get to side control. But I think the place she's most successful is in the half guard. And what you'll see from her a lot is a couple things. First of all, this knee is always sliding up high to the armpit, right? She's never being shallow with this. She's always getting here, and she stays flat on top of them. From right here, as their arms are in here, she does a lot of framing to get her arm on top and then start getting an inside position where she can frame. And she keeps her chest heavy and throws short elbows, allowing her to do a lot of damage without giving up position. She doesn't risk posturing up, losing a position. She keeps on top of them, keeps their hands down, keeps on top of their arms to get their arms cleared so that she can put her chest on top of them, put her chest on them, and just drop elbows. And she'll stay here all day. She's going to make you work to escape. And when they do, this is when she starts getting backs and stuff like that. As they start trying to turn away, she's going to start letting them. And now she's going to start getting in here. You know, the old school classic idea of ground and pound from a top position, force the turn away, threaten choke, through some striking. And she'll do that all day long. She's got a good choke. She's got a good arm bar. Both are thrown from top positions. You know, she'll do an arm bar from mount that she'll go for sometimes. It's okay. It's not her real finishing technique. She likes to essentially finish by ground and pound. If she happens to hit an arm bar because they're feeling like they're putting their arms out there, you know, if she's in here and the arms are coming up, well, sure. Who isn't going to take it because it's there, right? Especially because I'm creating this by getting on top of your arm, forcing you to go, oh crap, and I'm getting in here. So of course this arm bar is going to feel great to try to get to. Rear naked choke is kind of the same thing. If she can get it, that's great, but really, it's not what she's looking for. She might end up in a position where she's getting a body triangle, and the body triangle makes sense if you're a striker because my hands are free to throw bombs, right? Your hands might start trying to get in the way or throw some backward strikes, but really from here, right, this is me all day. And I can start threatening chokes in here as well, and as you start defending the choke, I'm still punching you in the face, right? Both of my arms are free, and you're not going anywhere. Your chance of striking me, you might hit me with something here, but you're not going to do any damage. Meanwhile, the best you can hope for in the other position is to tie up my hands. So her ground and pound is a very strategic system. She's very well trained at getting to a position, and I think what the real lesson to learn from this is the ability to keep a position, to tie up the arms so that you can get freedom to strike with your own and not let them escape. So that's pretty much it for Zhang Weili. I hope you enjoyed this. She was fun to break down. I learned a lot from watching her. She's a big influence in my Nemean fight system, particularly when we talk about how I build combination groupings and stuff these days. So thanks for watching.